It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional and really using food to fuel your goals, and really using food and leveraging the power of these whole foods to allow you to show up.
Welcome, everybody. I'm excited today to have Kathy Davis to talk with us about leveraging the power of foods to increase your energy and how eating more plants can impact your life and your business in a big way. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kathy.
Thanks for having me, Wade. I'm really excited to be here and share with everybody the way to make plants help you with your goals.
My pleasure. Kathy is a plant-based accountability and empowerment coach, the CEO of VegInspired, and the author of 3 cookbooks: the 30-minute whole food plant-based cookbook, the super easy plant-based cookbook, and the budget-friendly plant-based diet cookbook. She empowers high-achieving professionals to elevate their energy by adopting healthy living habits so they can step into their genius and crush their ambitions. I really like that. And as somebody who's been eating vegetarian, at least 9 years, and I'm like 90% vegan, for me, it makes a huge difference. So I'm really excited to hear about this. So would you mind sharing a little bit about how you got started? How did you get introduced to this? Were you always vegetarian? Did you grow up on I think people use stereotypes. Did you grow up on a hippie commune, or like were your parents hippies, or how did you get started and what led you here?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. So I actually did not grow up eating plant-based. My dad is a hunter. I grew up on, the animals from the hunting that he did. And I was introduced to plant-based eating as a way of life by my husband. He read a couple of contradictory articles and he was like, I think we should look into this. And I was really resistant in the beginning. I really didn't want to give up the foods. I didn't want to give up the foods that I'd loved, the burgers, the buffalo wings, the blue cheese dressing, just cheese in general. And the more I started to eat plant-based, the more I realized it wasn't actually what I thought it was. And I wasn't actually giving anything up. In fact, I eat more of a variety now than I ever ate before. And it took about 8 months to really adopt it as a lifestyle. But once I did, I started to see the benefits right away.
And so, one of the things that, like you, I also think about when I started, we happened to be living in Peru at the time, and there were not all these Beyond Meat and Beyond Burgers. So it was a lot harder. And I started what some people call, I was a pizza pasta vegetarian. So, and I just, I slowly eased into it. I went from, I would do 1 day a week vegetarian, then 2 days a week vegetarian. So I kind of eased my way into it, but I became very aware of noticing how I felt after I ate food. And that's one of the things I'd heard one person say: the difference between a healthy diet, or a person who eats healthy and a person who doesn't, is a person who eats healthy is more concerned about how they feel after they eat something. The person who's less concerned just wants to know how they feel while they eat something. What was that like for you? How did you sense shifts in either your energies, or what changes happened? And maybe even narrate a little bit what you experienced. Because I know a lot of people have told me, wait, I want to do this, but I can't do it. Or, oh, you're so strong on this and that. And first of all, I'm like, look, there's a lot of really actually tasty vegan junk food out there if you need kind of a crutch to get started. And I'll still have some of that sometimes. And as different people have different reasons. Some people do it for health. Some people because they believe they want to be kinder to the animals. And I just heard something recently. It was a show, I think it's called Yellowstone or something, with Kevin Costner. And he's talking to this girl who's doing a veggie or a vegan protest. He's like, do you know how many frogs and worms we have to kill to till the soil? I was like, oh, geez. Well, then, so even the people that are saying, okay, it's for that reason, so I try not to make it a yes, no thing, a I'm better than you thing, a stand on a soapbox thing. And when I actually got past that, and some of the people that for me are too fanatical about it were like, oh my God, you have to do this. Like, I couldn't handle that. I was like, no, that's too much in anything, politics, religion, food, whatever. But I just looked at how did I feel? And in my case, with younger kids, I'm like, I want to be able to keep up with them. And I did start to know shifts. What shifts did you notice, or what can somebody perhaps expect if they start going down more of this path?
That's a great question. And, we hear all the benefits. we hear that it's going to help your health and it's going to give you energy and productivity and all of that. But until you really start to experience it, oftentimes you don't believe it. And I always tell people, I didn't know how good I could feel until I started to feel good. I didn't know that I could have more energy. I didn't know that I could have more mind clarity from not eating the processed foods and the high inflammatory animal products. And what I found was I had this overall sense of lighter feeling where I just felt lighter and cleaner and more energized every day. My sleep got better, which means that I was able to wake up with more energy because I had a better night's sleep. I also started to, I experienced a 40-pound weight loss, really cleaning up the way that I ate and really looking at and leveraging the power of whole plant foods. So it was more about what foods as close to nature could I eat to give me the energy and really allow me to experience this level of energy that I hadn't had. And you asked about the shift. And for me, it was really a mindset shift on what healthy eating looked like and felt like, and being the person who showed up as that, right? Being the person who showed up at the dinner table for those healthy foods because I knew how they made me feel. And the more I experienced it, the more I gave it a try, the more I, passed on the processed foods or passed on the animal foods, the more energy, the more happiness, the more joy. And that it just made more sense. And I would feel better. I wouldn't have that bloated, that tired, that lethargic feeling after I ate. And I love how you tapped into that, right? Like having the idea of how you feel after you eat instead of how you feel while you eat. It's that different in satisfaction and that difference in reframing what the foods really do for us.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends I used to play on a volleyball team with, and he always talks about, would ask him, what do you want to eat? He's like, Wade, food's just sustenance, man. I want to eat whatever's going to help me perform the best as an athlete. And, I've been exposed to so many different people over the years. Like there's a gentleman by the name of Jack Grapple. I think he's called the Corporate Athlete. He has a program and it's based on food, and it was just nutrition. It wasn't vegan or vegetarian. Just, again, what's going to give you energy. And one of the things that really got me thinking more about this was when I saw multiple arrows pointing me in the same direction. So to your point, what you mentioned, people might not say they want to start like hardcore, but there's certain things, like I think most people would agree, for example, I'll go really extreme here. Most people would agree that doing drugs versus not doing drugs, you're healthier if you don't do drugs. You say, okay, we've agreed upon that for the most part as a society. Not smoking is healthier than smoking. We've agreed upon that as a society. I think for the most part, eating a lot of processed sugars is not as good as not eating them. And I find a lot of people get very dogmatic and then in their approach, and they want people to be completely just like them. And it makes it very difficult to be accepted. It's almost like, without going into Christianity, the different forms of Christianity that people can have and get so specific. Whereas it feels to me when we focus at a higher, like big picture, like let's just be nice to each other. Like most religions agree upon that. Let's eat healthier foods. Let's see how we feel. Let's have some sort of internal barometer, internal measurement of how we feel. Because to your point, even if almost like you go down a continuum, when I just started eating less processed foods, like even that was a step forward. So if somebody's, let's say, wanting to even start conceiving this idea, because right now, I don't know, some of, and for those of y'all who are meat eaters, I've been a meat eater. I'm not against it. There's a circle to nature in life, and I'm really not against a whole lot. I do think, and I think most people I know are like, I'd rather have naturally raised, humanely treated animals that happen to perhaps get used for beef, as opposed to the big, the things that we see on the documentaries of just all these animals crammed into a place where you're just like, wow, it just feels not nice. And then I remember one person telling me, he says, well, Wade, what do you think is the vibrational energy level of an animal that's raised in that situation versus, let's say, a grass-fed free roam, and the real, not the, advertised thing at times. But so I say, okay, so again, I'm just like, for me, it's like, okay, how do I move in a healthier direction, not even a morally right direction. I'm not looking to go into that conversation because I don't know what's right or wrong. But when you start looking at starting to feel the energy shifts, what is something that how can a person, because you and I seem to be in touch with this because we've done this, what is it even like to feel the energy difference? Like, how do you do that? Do you sort of pay attention? Do you journal? Do you just kind of notice how you feel after you eat a meal? How can a person get more in touch so that they can even find what works for them, given that there's so many diets that, people will say this works, keto works, vegan works, that works. And you're like, okay, well, if people are saying almost two diametrically, in some ways, different diets work, and yet there's similarities, how can a person start finding their inner measurement or their inner tool to just see how things work?
Well, so this is a really interesting question. And if you dig to the root of what you're asking, it's really that mindfulness. But it's also giving yourself permission to try the different pieces, right? As you said, we were meat eaters. I grew up eating the standard American diet. It's no hidden factor that the standard American diet is really founded on meat, starch, veg, loaded with covered in animal products, covered in cheese, covered in other dairy, potatoes with sour cream. And when you think about that, and you think about the way we eat, everything in our society right now is very fast. We don't pause to see how we feel. We drive through the drive-through. We eat the Chick-fil-A, which is, they claim is a cleaner fast food. We eat it. We go on to the next thing. We never really know how our food makes us feel. We might get a stomach ache and be like, I didn't, that couldn't possibly be the cheese on it. I've been eating cheese my whole life. I always feel that way. But we don't actually pause to say, do I always feel that way because I've been eating cheese my whole life? Do I always feel that way after animal products because they're actually what's making me not feel good? We don't take that into consideration. And one of the big aha moments that I had was I suffered from adult acne. Like, my skin was terrible. I did everything I possibly could to, cover it up and try to just hide the way my skin looked. And when I reduced the super processed foods, the super processed oils, my face cleared up. When I reduced the dairy from my diet, my face cleared up. I would have never associated dairy with my skin because I'd been eating dairy my whole life. So it's really taking that pause and saying, how do I really feel after I eat? Are there any correlations between the different foods that I eat? And then the other side of it too is that mindfulness. In a society where everything is fast and fast and fast, and we're grabbing things out of boxes and we're eating things on the go, we don't take the time to say, how does this really make me feel? And then the other side of that too is we have a diet culture that pushes us towards light lunches, skipping breakfast. So we never really know if the food makes us feel good or the food makes us feel bad because we don't pause to think about it. We just continue to do the same thing we've always done. And until we rock the boat a little bit and we say, I'm going to try plant-based for a day and then 2 days. I'm not asking you to go vegan. Like, I've been on all ends of the spectrum, and I agree with you. Like, until we make this an inclusive and accessible piece for everybody to really eat more plants, it becomes this like almost hierarchy of rules and regulations. But if you're listening and you're like, I really want to give this a try. I want to get my energy in check. I want to see how this makes me feel. Start your day with oatmeal and berries with a plant milk. Maybe oat milk, maybe almond milk, something familiar. Don't go try soy if you've never had soy. Like, really tap into those familiar foods. Maybe for lunch, you have a sweet potato with black beans and a big salad. Don't make it confusing. Don't go and buy the mock products that you may or may not like. Just eat familiar foods. Leave out the animal products. And yeah, it sounds a little scary when I say, don't put butter on your baked potato or don't put sour cream on it. But what if the butter and the sour cream is what's making you feel icky at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? And we don't give ourselves that time to adjust. My philosophy in the beginning of eating this way was just eat more plants. Just eat more vegetables. Reach for the apple instead of the processed foods. Reach for the salad at lunch. Reach for the side dish of veggies, or add a side dish of veggies and still have the French fries. Like, you don't have to be perfect. It's more about being intentional.
That's so awesome. And that's definitely been my experience in so many different ways. I remember when I was in college, I was having a lot of food issues, and it was, in my case, it was too much dairy, too much wheat, too much orange juice. So it wasn't this judgmental thing about meat or not, or this or that. It was literally my body. Those were such staples in my diet, and I put so much of that, and I wasn't having as much just whole fruit or vegetables. And my body was just basically like anything else, was saying like, okay, we've had enough of that. We need something different. And I remember I shifted my diet almost the opposite of that for about 3 months. And all of a sudden, everything was just so much easier and so much simpler. And so now I definitely am very aware when I'm eating something, how do I feel after that? And, to your point, there are some vegan foods out there that now, and sometimes vegetarian, whether it's the Morningstar or the Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger, that sort of stuff. And some of them are still kind of junk food, and they're tasty, depending on how you view the world. But to me, so I'm not going to compare like an Impossible Burger to broccoli. I mean, broccoli is broccoli. It's going to be a lot healthier. And yet at the same time, to your point, there's so many things you can eat and still have it in a way that you still get to taste something close. And at least what I've learned is, if you try to compare, well, two things I've learned. One is there's still no such thing as a vegan steak. A steak is a steak is a steak. You're not going to replace a steak. If you really love steak, sorry, you're not going to, at least not yet. Maybe, I don't know. But when you start seasoning things and, so many of the chicken products or the burger, by the time you put the ketchup, the mustard, the this, the that, it's pretty darn close. And if you're not, and I feel way better after. It's not, at least now, again, these are different body types. I'm type A. So if you've read like Eat Right for Your Body Type in some of those books, an A, according to that book, is more of an agrarian, farming grains and whatnot. So red meat, I like the taste. It just slows me down. It's not a judgment, just my body doesn't take to it. But I try not to compare the vegan food to its alternative. I just try to say, do I like the way this tastes? And if I like the way it tastes, I'll eat it, as opposed to, well, this tastes 82% like what I was hoping it would taste like. And that attachment, I think, is no different than the kid that's, 25 years old and still only eats cheeseburgers and pasta, when people are like, okay, we're going to a restaurant. We've got this really fine restaurant and you still want chicken nuggets, chicken tenders and fries. Maybe you can expand your palate a little bit. Maybe you might discover something, that you didn't realize. But I like your idea of just eat more plants, just start eating healthier. And how can somebody then start moving that direction, given that things are so fast paced? How can somebody get a little more intentional and not have to give up that, yeah, right now my job, I need to be at the work, or I need to be traveling, I need to be in airports. How can somebody start in that direction without it being too difficult?
Honestly, I lean back into what are the familiar foods that you are eating? Like, how can you be most intentional in the places where you have the most control? So maybe that's not in the airport, right? Now, when I travel in the airport, I usually look for a Mexican restaurant in the airport or a sushi place where I can get veggies and rice. I can get chips and guacamole. Maybe I can get a salad, a salad at the Mexican restaurant with black beans. And so really looking at ways that I can kind of put together some easy meals, which comes back to what I always recommend people do when they're at home. Like, what are those foods that you can cook up quick that allow you to eat that allow you to eat more plants, that allow you to really have that meal be the vessel of eating more vegetables. Maybe it's tacos where you can use, beans and vegetables as your filling. Maybe it's soups. Maybe it's a pasta bowl with lots of veggies. Like, really thinking about ways that you can swap in and out ingredients. But if you take nothing from this podcast, my recommendation is always to eat more familiar foods that are as close to nature intended. If you like potatoes, if you like broccoli, if you like spinach, if you like nuts, if you like seeds, fruits, add more of those in. You don't have to try tofu and tempeh right away. You don't have to make this huge shift. And that's how I recommend people with children really leverage the power of food. Don't make them eat foods that are unfamiliar to them, but introduce them to new foods. So if they already like broccoli, add in some cauliflower. Now they've got two choices. If they're eating carrots and peas and corn, can you add in edamame and try a little bit of soy, a little bit of higher protein, vegetable bean, because it's a bean, but seems like a vegetable. Do they love pasta? How can you make pasta different? Maybe one night you do your pasta with red sauce and the next week you do it with a teriyaki, just giving them new flavors and new ways to eat foods that are similar. And then I love your point, like, don't make it's not a 1-for-1 comparison. People will always say, well, I can't give up cheese. I can't give up cheese. And I truly believe if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. Like, I believe that philosophy. So if you don't shift your mind to say, I may not be able to give up cheese as cheese, but I can use avocado in place of cheese. I can use avocados, to add that creaminess instead of sour cream. So I used to travel for work and I would get baked potatoes with avocado. And that was my alternative to baked potatoes with sour cream. And then the more you eat that, the more your palate starts to say, wow, this really does taste good. Like, this really is a good food. I feel amazing. Your recovery rate is faster. If you are high energy and you're on the go all the time and you're feeding yourself these foods that really fuel your body, these high starches that break down at a lower speed in your body, you can sustain energy longer. Your recovery rate from those late nights or those long weekends, right? That allows you to have more resilience to bounce back and be able to fulfill your commitments.
Yeah, I think there's so much that. And for me, my goal has definitely become energy. And that's kind of my main, like, why am I eating this for energy? And I think of even at times when I'm playing, I played volleyball at the beach on Fridays, and I'll eat a very light breakfast. I'll just be eating pretty much a Lara bar, which is like a fruit and nut bar, every half hour or so, every other game. Because as an athlete, if I eat too much, no different than Thanksgiving dinner or a big pasta meal, I'm going to get really tired. And I see the same thing even when I work. Like, okay, what is it that I eat that's going to keep me at kind of a nice steady energy level, as opposed to having this big blowout meal where now after it, my body is working so hard to digest it that it's falling asleep. And I think there's just so many connections that we don't make. Like, I remember I used to, I don't drink as much as, but I used to drink rum and Coke's my favorite drink. And I usually thought that the next day hangover was from the rum. And I came to find out a lot of it was from the sugar in the rum and the sugar in the Coke. And I know that now because sometimes I would just have like 3 or 4 Cokes. And the next morning I'm like, and I love the way it tastes. But I would just wake up the next morning. And for me, it's like, I just don't want to feel that way. And so then I look, okay, well, what's the yummiest food I can eat? I haven't said yummy in a lot of years, but what's the yummiest food I can eat that's going to still allow me to have energy? And like, I know, for example, chocolate cake for me, I love it. Chocolate cake will knock me out. If I'm fighting a cold, if I want to catch that cold, a piece of chocolate cake will guarantee me that, and that's just me. Now, I'm not saying that's a truth, but that's a truth for my body. And part of it might be the sugar or the Coke or I don't know, but I've just learned certain things that when I'm working on something or when I'm moving towards something, or if I'm going to a 3-day seminar, whether it's as a performer, definitely as a performer or a coach, or even as a guest or participant, again, I'm eating a lot of nuts and light stuff because the heavy stuff will just it'll just knock me out and make my body work harder. So is that more the processed versus the non-processed foods when your body's having to just work that extra bit harder?
Definitely. And the other thing that I've found, like, my truth is that when I eat those complex starches that are unprocessed, close to nature, typically white potatoes and sweet potatoes, my sustained energy through the rest of the afternoon is on point. Like I can show up as a rock star. I can go till 10 o'clock at night. Like I don't my energy level doesn't break down. So, and it may be and for me, or if you're listening and you're like, gosh, if I eat potatoes, that makes me exhausted. What are you putting on the potatoes? What quantity are you eating? When I eat a sweet potato, I usually eat half a sweet potato and black bean, about a half a cup of black beans, and then a big side of some type of vegetable or green. My favorite is like a salad with a little pico de gallo, a little avocado. That's like a chipotle bowl, but I use the sweet potato as the starch. And that really gives me the energy, because what I found, especially in the work that I do, I'm up, I'm doing all my morning routine, my meditations, all of that. And by lunchtime, if I don't have sustained energy, hangry Kathy will show up at about 5 o'clock, digging through the kitchen, looking for whatever I can find, arguing over what's for dinner. Like it becomes this routine of just, I'm hungry and I'm angry about it and I want something fast. And I know that that's common for a lot of people, because that's what I hear people say. Oh, I eat light salads and I'm always hungry. I could never go vegan. I could never go plant-based. My salads don't fill me up. I'm like, salads don't fill me up either. That's why I add a potato. That's why I add a scoop of quinoa. That's why I add some beans. Like you're hearing me talk about these whole foods. You're not hearing me say, that's why I slap a Impossible Burger on it, right? Like it's really the low oil, the low processed ingredients that allow you to have that sustained energy. What the other thing I found is the truth for me too was when I ate those processed foods, it was almost like my body crashed a couple hours after. And it's because the processing makes them easier to digest, which means that they go through your body faster. And so you eat those white refined, super refined processed breads and things like that. And they don't keep you satiated long enough because there's so many sugars and all the germ and the bran and all of that that's in those natural whole ingredients, those whole grains, is just pulled out and processed out. And we're just left with the flour. And that doesn't keep us energized and sustained long enough.
Yeah, I know with our, you mentioned something about kids and not forcing the diet. We were very, and still are very humble about that, because we said, look, we don't know. We have our hypothesis and we're adults of what we want to eat. We weren't sure what would be best for them. But one of the things we noticed is our kids did not take to bologna, for the most part, sometimes salami, but hot dogs. There's just so many things that they're like, yeah, we don't like that. And they would take to fresh fish, sushi, chicken, that was more, and even with the red meat, they're like, okay, it's got to be a specific cut. And at first they're like, oh, they're so uppity. No, they're like, this doesn't make me feel good with all the fat and that stuff. And again, some of it can taste really good. And for me, it's a lot about what will I eat during a work week on the days that I'm working, and what will I eat on a weekend. The same way I'll allow myself to eat cake on the weekend and won't eat that much of it, especially if I'm working, because it's just, again, I just know what it's going to do to me. Being able to do that. So one of the other things that you and I talked about earlier was connecting now your food and what you're eating to how it's going to help you achieve your goals. Because, ultimately, when we're coming to work, we're looking to say, okay, I want to get some stuff done. I want to impact people's lives, get results, make money, and be able to buy the stuff and do the cool things I want to do. And I'm going to I'll start it on the, well, okay, let me word it this way. How can a person diagnose that, yeah, you know what, my meals are keeping me from performing? What does that look like first? And then what can they do to perhaps start moving in the direction of doing better with that, so that they're able to get some better results and make some better things happen?
Well, I mean, I'd love to stand up here in a soapbox and say all the studies point to plant-centered eating being the healthiest option, but we've already kind of touched on this. You have to take control of it and take personal responsibility and identify how you feel after you eat. So if you are right now eating scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast every day, and you feel like crap halfway through the morning. You feel heavy. You feel lethargic. You feel hungry. Maybe try oatmeal and strawberries with a little plant milk. Maybe see how you feel after a couple of days. Maybe see how you feel after a day of eating that way. And the one study that always blows my mind, especially when I'm talking to high achievers and really thinking about my own journey, is when we eat 5 to 7 servings of vegetables or fruits a day, like whole vegetables and fruits, not processed jam or, a Nutri-Grain bar full of whatever that strawberry goo or whatever is in the middle, but whole fruits and vegetables, it can increase our productivity up to 25%. So I ask you, if you're listening, how would your life change if you could be 25% more productive? Is it worth trying? Is it worth saying, okay, this girl might be onto something. Let me eat oatmeal for breakfast. Let me eat a salad with potatoes for lunch. Let me really lean into what this whole food, these closer to nature intended meals are, and let me see how I feel. Because let's be honest, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Like, what if you get 10% more productive because you ate oatmeal for breakfast instead of bacon and eggs? Yes, you might feel in the beginning like you're giving something up. Yes, you might be like, I really would prefer a savory breakfast. What do you got for that? Avocado toast, start there. But really thinking about, it's up to you if you make these changes, and knowing what these results could be. Do you want to work your butt off to not be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor? Or do you want to start these healthier habits now so that you can be more productive, so that you can take that time off, so that you can say, wow, I made a bigger impact in the world. I'm serving more people. I'm earning more money. And now, bam, I can take that extra day off, right? Here we are with the 3-day weekend. Like, is that something you want? How can you get more energy during that workday, that more focused productivity, that more focused mind function, by cleaning out some of the foods that you're eating? And when you boil it down, it really comes back to what I said earlier. It's that eat more plants philosophy. Where in your diet, where in your meals can you reach for the fresh food? Can you reach for the whole food? Maybe it's substituting an ancient grain or quinoa for pasta. And I'm talking about some simple swaps here. Maybe it's a mushroom instead of a beef burger. Maybe it's, a potato instead of French fries. Maybe it's adding a second vegetable, or swapping out, even a whole grain cereal with plant milk, or non-dairy yogurt with vegetables and granola. Just those simple swaps could lead to far significant increase in energy and mind production. And when you really think about it, those are easy swaps. Like, I'm not suggesting that you rip everything out of your pantry and buy only the vegan food. Like, I'm really suggesting, what's the path of least resistance for you? Can you make these easy swaps? And when I tie it back to where I was 2.5 years ago, eating vegan processed foods, eating the Beyond Burgers, the Impossible Burgers, really leaning into the takeout all the time and not planning ahead and just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, I was pretty much on the couch most of the day because I didn't have the energy to get up and edit videos. I didn't have the energy to write recipes. And when I cleaned up and really, really started to leverage the power of these whole foods, vegetables and hummus for snacks, oats and berries for breakfast, noodle bowls, tacos with beans, bean burgers, when I really started to use foods in their more natural state. And they don't have to be hard. You don't have to be whipping up veggie burgers every day. You could literally open a can of chickpeas. Like, it can be simple. I noticed an increase in energy. I launched my international coaching business. I lost 40 pounds. I wrote 3 cookbooks, not 1, not 2, but 3, because I had the energy and the productivity behind it, all from eating more plants, all from eating healthier, all from choosing the healthier option. But it came down to that decision. I was teaching my clients last night, like, that one decision to eat more plants, to eat healthier, choose healthier foods, has impacted thousands of people. What would be the impact you could make if you had more energy to show up, to do the things, to be the person that your clients or the people that you're leading, your audience really needs you to be.
Yeah, that's so huge. And I just think of something, we talk about in internet marketing or online marketing, the idea of split testing. You're going to test something. You're going to do email A and
Mhm.
email B. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's the idea that you might say in email A, you have one headline, and in email B, you have a different headline, and everything else is the same. So it's meant to be scientific. And you say, okay, well, email A got opened this many times. Email B got opened that many times. Okay, that email A's header, your subject line is better. And to your point, why wouldn't you at least try, okay, I'm going to either take a week eating cleaner or more plant-based, whatever word you want to use, and then a week a different way. Or I'm just going on Mondays and Tuesdays eat a certain way and Wednesdays, Thursdays, just something that allows you to experience it. And it doesn't have to be forever. You can still have, like, I still will eat, and I'm aspiring to eat more whole plant-based, but I have my Impossible Burger on the weekend because I just want to have my junk food. But
Yeah.
even that, I can tell you, knowing that I'm going to have it on Saturday or whatever, or some food like that, allows me to then not feel so deprived that I've got to rebel against the way I'm eating. It's not a diet. It's just a way I eat that helps me have more energy. So during the week, I'm like, oh, well, if I want this result, if I want energy, I'm going to have carrots with hummus as a snack, not something else. I'm going to have certain things that, no, they don't necessarily taste as good. My palate, though, craves them. My body craves them more, to where I start looking at foods that I guess maybe my tongue would think, oh, this is tastier, but my body's like, oh no, not today. We gotta do stuff. And there becomes almost this visceral reaction, like, no, that's junk food. And I might want, and on Saturday I might be like, yeah, I got nothing to do. Give me some junk food. But when I'm producing, I need that more just clarity and focus of what I'm doing. And again, just being aware of that. It doesn't have to be judgmental. It doesn't have to be me on a soapbox preaching at people. And just another thing, people have asked me, well, wait, are you completely vegan? I say no, because sometimes I'm at a party and there's birthday cake, or sometimes there's pizza. And I'm not going to, for me, I'm not going to do the thing, well, I'm so much more evolved than you and you should meet, like, I don't want to be that guy. And I'm not looking to be that guy. But to your point, I found I have so much more energy. I have so much more ability to give and be productive and perform, that why wouldn't I do that if I could? And in my case, I know I can't.
Well, and speaking to that, right, it really comes back down to that mindfulness, that intention. And I love how you said, like, you're not perfect. I'm not here to be perfect, right? I'm whole food, plant-based, mostly unprocessed most of the time. That is my day in and my day out habit. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy a cocktail or a piece of vegan cake or a veggie, burger and a vegan burger and fries at some point. Like, it's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional and really using food to fuel your goals, and really using food and leveraging the power of these whole foods to allow you to show up. And I love that you talked specifically about, your body starting to recognize what it wants and what feels good, because a lot of times it's our mind that holds us back. We know that when we eat something, we either feel good or we don't. We know. We don't know how good maybe we can feel, but we generally know that there's something off if we eat something. Maybe it's that big steak or that big pasta meal and you're like, oh, I feel so heavy. Right? Or that Thanksgiving meal where you feel like you're never going to get all the mashed potatoes and all the things that are on the plate. So you eat as much as you possibly can. We know, but we don't actually know how good we can feel until we allow our body to feel good. And so with that intention and moving forward, just testing it, seeing what feels good, seeing what gives you the energy. Maybe it's, and I always tell people, like, I was the girl that drank the coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon. My sleep was terrible. I had no business drinking coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon, but I felt like I needed something. So it was either coffee or candy. But when I switched that and I started eating maybe an afternoon salad, which sounds like a weird snack, but it actually works out because you can put a sweeter dressing on it, maybe some fruit on it. Or when I ate fruit as a snack, I would make like fruit salads, or I would bring, fruit. Mother Nature packs it up easy to take with with you. We have no excuse as to not bring apples, bananas, pears, all those things that just travel really well. Or I would eat veggies, like you said, carrots and hummus. When I started trying that out, I never didn't, that hangry Kathy didn't show up at 5 o'clock, right? I was able to sustain that energy, but that hangry Kathy, coffee didn't work. It would give me some energy, but then I would crash and it wasn't sustenance. It was just, I don't know, not even drinking calories, just the caffeine just gives you the pop of energy. And then you crash again when your caffeine wears off.
Yeah. And, something I read recently from I forget which man. No, I think it was, I forget the gentleman's last name, Matthew. He's a sleep expert. And he talked about the half-life of caffeine in coffee. And so, half-life is how long does it take for half of it to dissolve? And to simplify it, he said, look, when you drink a cup of coffee, 6 hours later, half of the caffeine is still there. And 12 hours later, a quarter of the caffeine is still there. So he says, so basically, if you have a cup of coffee at 10 a.m. of 8 ounces, that's the same as if you at 10 p.m. decided to drink 2 ounces of coffee right before you go to bed. And all these things that tie in, like being lethargic, being sleepy, being angry. I mean, gosh, anytime I do a fast, I literally have to tell my family I'm doing a fast because they're like, uh-oh. And I'm like, you need to keep in check with me because if I start turning into a monster, you need to tell me, wait, because then like I've done fasts a lot of times where I'll have to bail and eat something because they're like, okay, you're turning into a jerk and that's not cool. And it's great that you want to fast for your health and whatever, but yeah, no, you're being mean now. So no, that's not okay. So I think it's one of those things where, like you said, if you can just be aware of it. But I think really it's reframing the conversation as opposed to like this teenager that says, well, what are you trying to get me to give up? And you're saying, well, what else could you have? And to your point, so what if you tried for a month? You ever done anything for a month? You ever gotten a gym membership for a month and stopped? Yeah, done that a couple thousand times. What if you did something? And what if you even just took one habit? Or what if one day you said, one day a week, and this is how I started, one day a week I was going to be vegan. And one day a week I was going to be vegetarian. And then I just eased my way into it and I experimented and I found certain things. And for me, I needed the Impossible Burgers and the pizza and the pasta. Those were my bridge foods to help me get over it because the little internal adolescent in me was like, well, I'm not doing this if I don't get some cookie at some point, figuratively or literally. So I'm like, okay, I have to have that cookie. And if and then that for me, and then the other thing, which I will say this, because, I don't like to preach on this, but I remember I read an article once and it was a list of all these thinkers throughout history that chose to be vegetarian or vegan and just their rationale. And I'm not trying to sell it, do your own research, whatever. But it was the exact opposite of the in-your-face pamphlet of how nasty it is, what gets done to animals, which I agree. But I don't like the shock value thing because that feels pressure. That feels like you're a bad person if you eat meat. And I'm like, I don't want, just the whole energy of that to me is like, yeah, I don't want that. But when I just saw people saying like, why would you do that? And then what's interesting is my wife did a yoga certification and there's a gentleman, she took it from a gentleman by the name of Fred Bush. And he had this talk about whole foods and plants and this and that. And one of the things that he said that just stuck with me is he said, if you look at the animals that are on the planet today that are closest to us and look at how their digestive systems work. And I believe it was either the gorilla or the baboon. I forget which one. I was confused the two. But he said, look at their body. So it must be the gorilla, just like huge, just big packs. It's like, they don't eat meat. And he said, now what I want you to understand is, he says, if you look at their diet, and I was like, okay. He says, but their digestive tract, he says, theirs is a lot like ours. It's like all these curves and this and that. And he says, whereas a lion has a one-chamber stomach, like it's meant to eat meat, no judgment. It's just like its body's meant for that. Ours is not. And he said, so here's this thing. You don't question if it lacks energy or vitality, just naturally. It can do stuff all day long and it literally goes and hunts for its stuff. And I was just like, okay. And then the other thing he said, which I thought was so great, he says, look at your hands, look at your feeble little hands, look at your teeth and tell me you're going to try to catch something. He says, you take a chicken out of a coop and just try to catch a chicken. He says, we aren't made for that. Now we found a way, we're clever. So we figured out how to work, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what our body is going to feed off of. So again, even if you take the whole judgment of whether it's nice or not to kill animals and all that, and because you can look at that from 10 million different angles, but if you just look at how does your body respond, that's what for me was the thing. And you mentioned something earlier about needing sugary or caffeine-like products. And I want to go back to that if you don't mind, because to me, that's something that I feel is if I feel myself needing chocolate or a sugar bar or something, it almost is like uh-oh, I didn't eat right today or something, because why is my body like so strung out that it's like, dude, I'll take anything. Give me some sugar. Like, did I not get good sleep? What was it that I'm not naturally turning to? In my case, it's if I'm get a horrible amount of sleep, or if I do no exercise, and tomorrow my body is like, well, no, you're not going to get exercise from yoga or cardio. Yeah, that doesn't, well, of course you will. But my body is like, no, we need something quicker. Or if I have a 12-hour day and I just convince myself, how can a person be aware of that? And what are some healthy alternatives that will help them perhaps not be as dependent upon that? Maybe just get to that 1 cup of coffee, or maybe if you're at 4 cups, to get to 3 cups, and just, again, not as a judgment, but as something that can help a person have that more consistent level of energy, rather than the spikes where they then feel that crash and they have to kind of re-up again, to where it almost feels like an addictive pattern. How can a person identify that, and what can they do with that?
So identifying it first is really it goes back to tapping into how you feel, tapping into what your body's, what signals your bodies are saying. For a lot of us, that caffeine or that desire is often an association, right? It's often the habit. Now, of course, when you've had the habit of 4 cups of coffee a day, when you go down to 1, you're going to have those withdrawal symptoms. So you really do need to kind of edge yourself off some of these, especially those more, those substance type things, caffeine, sugar. You really want to make sure that as you wean yourself from that, you are looking for healthier alternatives. But first, it's becoming aware, right? The awareness is the key. Is it an association? Do I meet my friends at the coffee stand at 3:00 every day? Like, what's the association? It's kind of like happy hour. Do I have an association for happy hour? I go every Friday, I go every Thursday. Happy hour happens, and there's this association. I'm going to have drinks and I'm going to have snacks. When you start to break those associations, that doesn't mean you don't go. You start to reframe what that looks like in your mind. Maybe your happy hour is you eat before you go and you only go and have cocktails. Maybe your association with the 3:00 is you eat some fruit. You eat some fruit, you eat some dried fruit, some fresh fruit. Maybe it is a small piece of chocolate. Maybe it's something of that nature, and you get a decaf coffee. And you slowly start to wean yourself into an alternate option so that you can, because the substance addiction, there's studies that show that dairy is very addictive. Obviously caffeine, any type of those products that it's such a habit, it's such a routine, simply changing the routine. But that doesn't mean that the withdrawal is going to go away. Maybe you switch from coffee to tea, and then down to decaf, and really just slowly changing what you're doing. For me, when I need a boost of energy, I always turn to a potato. I always turn to a whole food starch, something that's naturally going to provide energy. That's why when you hear of ball players or athletes, they carb load the night before so that they can get the sustained energy. So it's the same type of concept. What can you eat that's going to naturally give you the energy? It's not going to give you the caffeine necessarily, but it's going to give you that energy, and you'll be able to say, okay, the sweet potato at lunchtime, that does pack in the energy. I'm not dragging at 3:00. But if you don't try it, you don't know. And that's really where it comes back to, what can you test? What can you see? What works? I love to keep dried fruit in the fridge, dates, dried apricots, things of that nature. A couple of those are like candy to me now. It wasn't always the case. I had to reframe what I turned to. I also love to keep frozen grapes in the freezer. And a handful of those is like an afternoon candy. So it's just kind of reframing how you look at food and what you turn to and what new association you can make.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, there's so much to this. And I just think it's one of those things, again, when we're, for some reason with athletes, we agree with this. Like, I don't think anybody would disagree with what we've talked about, the theme of it, of eat healthier to have more energy if you're an athlete. Everybody would say, oh, what did you eat before your big game? Did you get good rest? What are your habits? Did you stretch? And yet we think, oh, we're supposed to sit at a chair or a table all day long on a computer and not have that need. Wow, so much that you've shared. Thank you so much, Kathy. Where can people learn more about the work you do and your books and how they can get started? And we'll put the links below, but where can they learn more about your work?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on Instagram at VegInspired, and then I actually put together a free gift for the listeners. So one of the things that I really feel is important is to have a plan. How can you execute this? Right? We have write a business plan. We have plan for vacations. How can we execute this? So I put together a little meal plan, 7 recipes that the whole family will love. All plant-based, all easy. Even comes with a grocery list. You can download that at veginspired.com/podcast. And I'd love to connect. I'd love to hear from you. Just let me know what I can do to support you. Like I said, I'm very inclusive. It's not about going vegan. I don't preach the vegan thing. It's really about eating more plants and really channeling and leveraging the power of food to reach your goals. So thanks, Wade, for having me on. I really appreciated connecting with you and sharing my story and helping other people eat more plants.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And for all of you listening, as always, I look forward to helping you impact more people and make more money in less time. Do what you do best so you can better enjoy your family, your friends, and your life. And if eating healthy will help you do that, well, gosh darn it, let's do that. Have a good one, everybody.